Winning isn't everything. At least the 10 guys on this list sure hope that's true. Indeed, among the famous and beloved stars of MMA, not all of them are necessarily big winners. Some have managed to go down in legend for the heart and grit shown in defeat, and this list is all about them. They're in order from 10th to 1st, so be sure to stick around till the end. Firstly, at number 10, Jason McDonald. The mixed martial artist fighting out of Canada, Jason McDonald, sports a losing record in the UFC, standing at 6-8 by the time his career came to an end in 2013. Though that's not particularly impressive, many of those losses include some of the best in his weight class, including stalwarts like Yushin Okami, Demian Maia, and Rich Franklin. McDonald's grappling battle with Maia is one of his most well-remembered bouts. He and the BJJ black belt exchanged holds and positions for nearly 3 full rounds before Maia finally caught him in a rear naked choke to get the victory. It's considered one of the best ground battles of its time. The Canadian's match with Rich Franklin was a middleweight title eliminator, meaning he would have been in contention to challenge the reigning and dominant champ of the day, Anderson Silva, had he gotten the victory. Ultimately, he never got out of the blocks against Franklin and was pounded on for the brunt of the bout until his corner threw in the towel after the second round. Next up at 9, Matt Lindland. Lindland is a lot more accomplished than others on this list, being a 2000 Olympic silver medalist and actually boasting a solid UFC record, being 9-3 in his with the world's most famous MMA promotion. However, most would probably be kind of shocked to hear about the record, given that he's definitely most famous for fights that he lost. All 3 of his UFC losses were memorable for reasons he's probably not the proudest of. The first loss of his fighting career and his only ever UFC title shot came when he challenged middleweight champ Murilo Bustamante. This was a controversial fight because it appeared that Lindland was tapped out to an armbar early, but after he was released, he pleaded his case that he did not tap and the fight restarted. Sadly, the second chance amounted to little and he was submitted again later. His most famous fight of his UFC career came against a very young David Terrell, who knocked him out just 24 seconds into the first round. His other UFC loss, that came when he faced off with Falanico Vitali, where, in rather embarrassing fashion, he ended up knocking himself out after slamming his opponent on the mat. Oof. Stephan Bonnar at number 8. Finalist of the inaugural season of Ultimate Fighter, Stephan Bonnar is infamous for bloody battles in the octagon, and his battle with Forrest Griffin at the Tough One finale in 2005 will go down as one of the most famous fights in MMA history. From there, looking at the list of people who've beaten him is a real who's who of the light heavyweight division, with him running into the likes of Lyoto Machida, Rashad Evans, and John Jones. He even got a bout with long-reigning middleweight champ Anderson Silva just before the end of his record-breaking run, and of course, he lost to him as well. Make no mistake, Stephan Bonnar was a great fighter with many impressive victories as well, but what made him famous was seeing him go down in a blaze of glory, and when people think of him to this day, they think of his original fight with Forrest Griffin, followed by Heath Herring at 7. Yep, it's the Texas Crazy Horse himself, coming up 7th on this list. He had a heck of a career fighting in Pride FC, and a brief but memorable time in UFC as well. His much-anticipated debut came against Jake O'Brien on an episode of Fight Night where he was beaten in a bit of a stunning upset. Herring is likely most known for his stellar trilogy of fights against Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. Much like Ken Shamrock against Tito Ortiz, he never won any of these bouts, but their rivalry was famous all the same, and the bouts were always exciting. It was their third and final fight where he came closest to finally getting that win, putting him down with a brutal head kick, but Nogueira recovered and managed to win via decision. Brock Lesnar, Fedor Emelianenko, and Mirko Krokop Filopovic were among the other big names to have taken Herring down in his lengthened career of over 40 fights. Coming in at number 6, Clay Guida. The Carpenter Clay Guida has been fighting for a long time and is still with the UFC even to this day, despite losing a lot more than he wins in recent years and having a UFC record of 15-13 at present, almost batting 500 at this point. His longevity can be owed to him being a big-time fan favorite, which itself can be owed to the fact that 3 of his losses happen to be Fight of the Year candidates. Though he came in short in these battles, which took place against Tyson Griffin, Diego Sanchez, and Roger Huerta, he came out ahead in the long run, it's fair to say. He's a fine example of what it means to fight for the fans. Now at number 5, Hidehiko Yoshida. 1992 Olympic gold medalist Hidehiko Yoshida participated in 12 Pride FC fights, as well as taking part in Sengoku and Dream Cards. Yoshida was also part of 3 Pride Grand Prix tournaments. In that time frame, he put on some cage classics against men like James Thompson and Wanderlei Silva on 2 occasions. His fight against Mirko Krokop Filopovic in the Pride Grand Prix Absolute opening round saw him take one of the most brutal leg kicks we've ever seen. 4th on the list is Mark Hunt. Hunt has some stellar wins to his name, with 2 exciting split decision wins over Wanderlei Silva and Mirko Krokop. Cop, but even so, his 6-fight losing streak from 2006 to 2010 is tough to overlook, and he was tasked with fighting some absolute legends in this period: Alistair Overeem, Josh Barnett, and Fedor Emelianenko, just to name a few. He also lost his much-anticipated UFC debut, much like Heath Herring, where Sean McCorkle caught him early with the Kimura. Many love seeing him put his iron chin to the test against some of the top strikers in the sport, but Melvin Manoff put an end to that idea when he KO'd him in just 18 seconds. Coming in at 3, Enson Inoue. Enson Inoue has a big upset win over the legendary Randy Couture under his belt, and nobody can take that away from him. But sadly for him, it's not his most famous fight. When he took on the Ukrainian Igor Vovchanin at Pride 10, he was absolutely victimized, suffering one of the most vicious beatings ever seen in the sport of MMA, and think of the ground that covers. He was brutalized for 10 straight minutes, and by the end, he couldn't even make it back to his corner unaided. He was hospitalized for 4 days afterwards, suffering a ruptured eardrum, a broken finger, a cracked jaw, and terrifyingly enough, what was called a critical brain injury. It's not an exaggeration to say he's lucky to still be alive and functioning these days. Now at number 2, Phil Baroni. Phil Baroni's nickname was the Best Eva. He didn't quite live up to that moniker, if we're being honest. His UFC record is a less than stellar 3-7. His notable fights there include bouts with Evan Tanner, Pete Sell, and another guy on this list, Matt Lindland. The former there would be his most infamous bout. He faced off with Tanner at UFC 45 in a match that ended in controversy, with the ref stepping in after mistakenly thinking he had given up. Baroni wasn't too happy with that, going as far as attacking the official and netting himself a 4-month suspension. He returned for a much-hyped rematch with Tanner, which he of course ended up losing much more decisively. And last but not least, at number 1, Kevin Randleman. Kevin, the Monster Randleman, has taken on a litany of legends. Looking at the list of fighters he's taken on, kinda feels like you're looking at a Hall of Fame induction class. Mirko Filipovic, Bas Rutten, Fedor Emelianenko, Kazushi Sakuraba, Quentin Jackson, Mauricio Shogun Rua, Chuck Liddell, and Randy Couture are among those he's squared up, an absurd list of top-flight talents of the era. Shame Randleman lost to every last one of them. Though to be fair, he actually did once score a shock victory over Crow Cop, KOing him and earning himself an Upset of the Year award. But in the rematch, of course, Mirko would tap him in less than 50 seconds, avenging that loss in short order. Randleman nonetheless gave many of the all-time greats some of their toughest tests. His most famous fight was against Fedor, where he landed a crisp suplex that tossed the legendary fighter on his head, only for the last Emperor to swiftly reverse the position and submit him with a Kimura. And that is all the time we have for today's video. So then, which of our lovable losers would you say is your favorite? Do you agree that wins and losses aren't everything when it comes to being a worthy sports star? Or are we just out there handing out participation awards and should be ashamed of ourselves? Be sure to let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And until next time, thanks for watching.